Welcome back. Now, what happens in your home when the nanny just ups and quits? Who between your partner and yourself takes time off work to ensure the children are adequately cared for? Well, more often than not, it is the woman. A scenario which illustrates why safe, reliable and accessible childcare facilities can be instrumental in bridging the gender gap. Anita Zaidi, president of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's Gender Equality Division, made the case in a conversation with Olive Burrows.
Anita, we are very happy to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are we looking, especially on the African continent, a year for women after COVID-19 struck?
Their lives have changed from, going to work to having to stay at home and do all of the work at home, cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, schooling children if they're doing online education. So overnight they have become everything, or having to take on much more of the load of everyone's work than they did in the past. And it's all unpaid work. Women's progress is actually declining, and their labor force participation is declining. And unless we are careful in our response to the pandemic and how we're thinking about the recovery and putting women at the center of that, understanding their needs, we will have long-term damage to our societies and our economy from the pandemic. Okay. Which is avoidable. It is avoidable if we think about how to address it now.
So it is possible to reverse the damage that's been done by the COVID-19 pandemic on the progress of women in the last year.
Right, so you could think about childcare as a sector, where just creating childcare provision has a double effect on the economy, right? First, it provides affordable childcare to women, to mothers, so that they can participate in the labor force, and it provides job opportunities for other women in the childcare sector.
So have women been disproportionately affected by the pandemic?
It's interesting. So in terms of the disease COVID, we all have heard that men are affected more than women, right? We will recover from that by using vaccines and controlling the pandemic. If you look at who is affected from a societal perspective and from economic perspective, it is mainly women. That is what the data is showing. Those effects often are not even counted, Olive. That's the thing. So for example, when there is a lockdown, essential services are disrupted. Those are mainly for women. You cannot stop a baby from being born at a certain time. And those don't get counted in the COVID deaths, right? But they are happening. So both the indirect health effect and the pandemic's long-term effect on women's economic situation will have much more longer-term, profound effect on our society and our economy than the short-term pandemic effect.
Why is this conversation important for us to have?
This is the time when now all of the leaders of the world are getting together to figure out what needs to be done. And so if we don't have women at the center of that conversation, if we don't have women in leadership roles representing their countries, representing their interests, that opportunity is going to be lost.
If you're given a seat at the table to advise these leaders on what needs to be done, how many other such ideas would you make available to these leaders?
So one thing we talked about is provision of childcare. Now people will be surprised to know, we think childcare may be a middle class women problem. Actually, low income women also need childcare. And the evidence from, for example, Nairobi shows that there are 3,500 makeshift daycares in Nairobi. So clearly they are, fulfilling a need. And we actually have data and evidence from Kenya's informal settlements that show that if you provide subsidized childcare, you boost female employment, women's employment by about 17 to 20%.
There were reports of anecdotal evidence of an increase in domestic violence, sexual violence. I know the Kenyan government is working to get girls back to school, even if they're expecting. Are there lessons that we can take away?
The e-filing and case tracking system that the Kenyan government developed through the judiciary for tracking gender-based violence cases and making sure that they do not they come to the court. They don't get stuck in the bureaucracy or the process. So those could be, just not a temporary thing. I mean, those things can be made permanent features.